All right, so we did our energy exchange where we found the energy we would most benefit from releasing today was self-punishment. And the way we were going to soothe that, or the new energy that could kind of be the antidote to that, was hope. Hope. I'm curious about this one. This is a little bit unexpected. I've had hope come up before. Oh, that's Rosie getting up and shaking. Rosie, my dog. So I've had hope come up before, and it's made some sense. This one I'm kind of curious about. Hope in the place of self-punishment. Hope in the place of self-punishment. So let's dive into this a little bit further again with our charts. So the first thing I do, I just go to my very first index chart, which kind of guides me into where we go next and how we find this information that we're looking for. So here we go. Let's just get started. Sometimes I like to give y'all a big explanation. La 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 la. I like to talk a lot. But today we're just going to see what moves ahead and how we can get the most out of this time together. Well, this is interesting. Rebellion to one came up again. This came up the other day. We are rebelling from the fact, from the truth that we are one in nature, that we are a part of spirit, that we are a part of source. We are rebelling from that. Or we have or had rebelled from this in the past, and this rebellion is what is fueling our self-punishment. So it's not even necessarily that you're still in the energy of rebellion. It is that perhaps at a certain point in your conscious evolution, you did rebel from one, as we all do, to individuate, and you are now feeling like you need to punish yourself from that. So we can just say, I release myself from all self-punishment that sprouted out of my rebellion. Ooh, that's an interesting one. Never said those words in my life. I release myself from any self-punishment that has sprouted because of my soul's rebellion. And again, we can apply this on a really spiritual level. And I'm also thinking about anybody who has been punishing themselves because they have been rebelling from community or from the norm or from the expected or from, again, the status quo. If you're somebody who has been feeling this desire to rebel, but yet you're also in human form in a society that has a lot of rules and structure, then maybe this is for you. Maybe this is for you. And the message is, it's okay. It's all right. You're allowed to rebel. You're allowed to not want to do what everybody else is doing. Our souls are allowed to rebel from one. That's okay. It is part of this whole dynamic, right? I mean, spirit doesn't get to experience itself when it doesn't rebel from self. That's sort of the process. You got to rebel from self in order to experience self, in order to experience things outside of you. That's what I mean to say, right? So in order to experience things outside of you, you have to rebel from you, from the norm, from what you know of things. So that's what's coming up right now is the root of this self-punishment. So again, we're clearing us on a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual level, breathing into the acceptance that rebellion is okay. Rebellion does not need to be punished. Ooh, having some ideas about how this could also be applied to society right now. You are allowed to rebel from the expected. And some of you actually it may be your purpose and your mission in your life to rebel, to be part of the revolution, to be a part of a brand new experience and a brand new life that can only be created through rebellion. So think on that. Think on that. For anybody who's felt bad for their desire to rebel, maybe you are chosen. You are the chosen rebellers. Everybody's got to have a role, and maybe yours is to be someone that rebels. Love that for you. All right, so what else? What else can we see here that might be going on? What percent are we connected to the mind of spirit? 0%. And what percent would it benefit us to be more connected to the mind of spirit? Oh, that's 100%. So we are not connected to the mind of spirit. If we were connected to the mind of spirit, we wouldn't be punishing ourselves. I've always felt that way. It's always like when I am feeling really, really horrible about myself, I go to nature because there's no judgment in nature. you cannot find the energy of judgment anywhere in nature. You just can't find it. It doesn't happen. There are no committees, there are no juries, there are no, there's practically there's no written law in nature, right? There are the laws of nature that are just followed, but there is no judge with his gavel telling you that if you rebel from those laws, you're going to go to hell or you should be punished for all eternity. My roommate is taking a shower. I'm curious if you can hear that or not. So when you're finding yourself in self-judgment, when you're finding yourself in a state of self-punishment, I encourage you to go to nature. I encourage you to find a tree to sit under, or a river to sit next to, or a rock to hold. And I promise you, you will be downloaded with the truth that there is no judgment. There is no reason to judge yourself for your desire to rebel, for your desire to not live within the confines of the systems and the rules and the order that us humans have created for ourselves. We have very much gone against spirit, the mind of spirit, the heart of spirit, when we focus so heavily on judgment. Okay. All right. So let's see, what percent are we? Is there anything else you want me to look at, yes or no, when it relates to this self-punishment? No. Okay. And so now we're going to take our numbers chart and we're going to look at what percent are we open to having hope? What percent are we open to having hope? Again, this one I find really interesting. We're not open at all to having hope. So let's just dive into it. Let's see what we can do. What's blocking us to our hope? What is blocking us to our hope, to feeling hopeful, so that we no longer have to punish ourselves for who and what we are as beings, as creatures, as expressions of spirit? So we're just, is this clear the cellular memory or is this consciousness? Okay, so clear the cellular memory. So this is on a deep cellular level that we all just have the memory of self-punishment. And this has been passed down for generation after generation after generation after generation for thousands and thousands of years. I don't know why. I don't know why humans are like this. I don't. I mean, I know why. It's because it's a part of the plan. It's all part of the divine plan. It's all part of divine order in its own way. And yet I also think the divine order sometimes gets bastardized when free will starts to rear its ugly head. And it's weird, but it's like we have the free will to be able to punish ourselves if we want to. We have the free will to be able to hate ourselves if we want to. We have the free will to be able to sabotage ourselves if we want to. And so we're allowed to do those things. And yet when we do those things, oftentimes it just creates nothing but dysfunction. And so perhaps where hope comes in here is just hope is the energy of allowing ourselves to be who we are without judgment. Hope is allowing ourselves to be who we are without having to punish ourselves for what we discover. I can discover a lot about myself and still have hope that I am a worthwhile being on this planet that does not deserve to be, self-punished. And that doesn't mean that we don't all deserve to experience consequences, but we don't have to punish ourselves. You can take accountability and take responsibility and take on the consequences of your actions without intentionally punishing yourself. So that's something to consider there. All right, now what percent are we open to our hope? Well, now we're 100% open. That's beautiful. And now what percent are we blocked? But we're still 100% blocked. So let's look at that. What is the rest of this block here that's going on? Chart 17. Chart 17. All right. And again, this is called spiritual response technique. You can Google it and you'll find all sorts of information about it. Blocks to our creative force. Blocks to our creative force. We're just saying spirit clear. Whatever is blocking us, our creative force, we release ourselves from that now. Again, you can say, I release myself from anything that is blocking my creative force. I am comfortable with my creative force. I'm friends with my creative force. I trust my creative force. I am at peace with my creative force. I allow my creative force to flow through me out into the world. And really allow yourself to be willing to accept what is created when you allow that force to let loose. I think it's one thing to have that creative force inside of you, but if you don't let it loose to manifest into something tangible in this present reality, that again can create distortion. That again can create self-punishment. Ooh, that alone is self-punishment. When you hold back your creative force, that is self-punishment. Ouch. Oof. Yeah. Yeah. I see that now. Yeah, when you block your creative force, that is self-punishment. Because nothing feels better than allowing our creative force to express itself. Again, we are divine creators. And if you're blocking yourself from being a divine creator because you feel you need to punish yourself, again, because we go back to the beginning, which is we were feeling guilty about some sort of a rebellion, either on a spiritual level, on a soul level, which is why again we say spirit clear it, or psychologically you really have been feeling a desire to rebel from the norm, to rebel from your previous life choices, rebel from what you've always known, rebel from systems and structures that at one point served you but no longer do, and you're punishing yourself by limiting your creative force and by blocking yourself to the hope that something good could come when you do rebel and when you do express your creative force. I love how this all unfolds. At the beginning, I don't know if you can tell, sometimes I'm just like, what in the heck is going to happen here? I have no idea what's going to come up. I have no idea what's going to come up on these charts. And I wander through and I wander through and I wander through and it's like pulling another card in tarot, pulling another card in tarot. And then eventually it's like, oh, here it is. Here's the information. Here's the knowledge. Here's how it all plays out. And I love how that story unfolds, and I hope you all do as well. I genuinely have no clue what's going to happen next. I don't. And it takes truly a level of faith for me to sit down in front of this camera to hit record and go, I have no clue it's going to come up. And I just have to have faith. And that's always how I prep to work. I'm just like, I have faith, Spirit, that you're going to say through me the words that need to be said to be beneficial to the collective, to myself, to any individual that happens to see this and resonate with it. So, yeah, there we go. Okay, so now what percent are we blocked to our hope? Okay, about 20% left. That's my 20% on my numbers chart. So let's look at that final 20% together so we can clear it out of the way. All right, so we have another chart here. That was probably not a very attractive look. Do you want to see my double chin? Okay, let's see. What do we got going on here? Desire to suffer. Yeah, I mean, self-punishment, of course, there's some level of desire to suffer there in self-punishment. And I understand. I do think that there are times where if you have been inside of a little bit of an energy of self-punishment, there is some growth there. I can think of myself, I can think for myself of times in my life where I was operating in self-punishment and I did grow out of that desire to suffer, because that's what it is, right? If you're desiring to suffer, you're going to punish yourself. You're just going to find ways to continue to suffer, and that you do that by punishing yourself. And so I will say sometimes I understand it, and yet right now Spirit is saying, okay, enough is enough. You don't have to punish yourself anymore. You bought the t-shirt, you got the ticket, you got the trinket. You can take it home now and set it on the shelf and walk away from that self-punishment. You don't need to learn anything else. There's nothing else to glean from this. There's nothing else to distill from this. You've done the discerning. You've done the self-flagellation. You've learned the lesson. Now let's move on. We do not have to continue to stay stuck in the energy of self-punishment. And I think that's my message with all of SRT is like, these things are not inherently bad, horrible, awful things that come up, right? All of these energies are fine in and of themselves as we dip into them, because we are spirit having a learning experience through this human form. The problem becomes when we get stuck in them, when we loop in them, when we become obsessed, attached, addicted to them. When you become addicted to self-punishment, that is the problem. I do think that there are times where it's like, wow, I recognize in myself that I really messed this up. And I am going to be in an energy of self-punishment for a minute about this. Okay, valid. Okay, I'm not going to argue with that. I'm not going to argue with my friend who wants to sit in self-punishment for a week after, dropping the ball and making a big mistake. Okay. But when my friend stays in that energy of self-punishment for 10 days, 14 days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 9 months, 9 years, which a lot of us do. A lot of us do. I stayed in the energy of self-punishment for 20 years, y'all. I have. And that is when it becomes distorted, and that is when it becomes erroneous, and that is when it becomes, a twisted version of what could have been a really important lesson that you moved on from and you transformed from and that you grew from, and into cement and into a lack of transformation. And potentially, not only will you just be paralyzed and staying exactly as you are inside of that energy of self-punishment, not growing, not learning, not moving forward, but you might even devolve. That energy of self-punishment is really heavy and dense and gross. Again, if we go back to yesterday, might illness not develop out of that energy of self-punishment because it's stuckness, it's void, it's lack, it's hurt, it's an intentional way of hurting yourself, And think about it, like, would you feel good about it if you intentionally tried to hurt somebody for 20 years? If you intentionally tried to punish someone else on and on and on like that? Would you say that that was okay? Would you be like, yeah, no, that's fine. You can punish somebody for 20 years. No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't. You would say, of course, that's not okay. Either forgive or forget or move on, but you can't just punish somebody for that long. And that's what you're doing to yourself. That's what you're doing to yourself. Because again, for some reason, either on a soul and a spiritual level, spirit clear it, you were feeling bad about how you rebelled from spirit, rebelled from source. You're feeling bad about being human, is really what that says. Or again, here in the physical world, right here, right now, you are feeling bad because you want to rebel from the systems and the structures and the commitments and the vows you've made. And yeah, again, spirit is saying, let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. That is not serving you. It's not serving your family. It's not serving your friends. It's not serving your community. Self-punishment is not serving anyone. The energy of punishment is actually not serving anyone. Again, at least not ongoing. Again, punishment in the moment. Here we go. I have to experience the consequences of my action. Fine. Beyond that, once the lesson is learned and the transformation takes place, you are just operating inside of a really unhealthy inner dynamic between yourself, your spirit, your heart, your mind, whatever it may be. So you can say, I release myself from all of the habits of self-punishment that I have been operating inside of. I know they don't serve me any longer. I know that the patterns of self-punishment that I have been operating inside of do not serve me any longer. It's all right that I want to rebel. It's all right that I don't want to do things the same way everybody has told me things have to get done. It's all right that I separated from God and that my soul needed to go on this journey. I accept that, and I love myself anyway. And now how can I experience life accepting myself as an individual soul having an individual experience? All right, so something came up. Was it chart 12? I think it was chart 12. I was going somewhere and then I got distracted. Yeah, dysfunction of spirit by error consciousness. Our consciousness is an error, which is creating dysfunction of the soul. Spirit, clear it. Just like release that now. Like I release myself from this error consciousness of self-punishment. Self-punishment is error consciousness, and I release myself from that now. Do you want to be operating inside of error consciousness? Would you let your phone operate in error consciousness or error programming? Your computer, your phone, your whatever, would you want anything to operate inside of error consciousness? No. So release yourself from that error consciousness now by forgiving yourself and not forcing yourself to continue to punish yourself any longer. Okay, I feel like this might be our final chart. Again, we're back to rebellion to one. So have we resolved? Have we resolved and cleared the rebellion? Yes, 100%. So now what percent are we open to hope? 100%. What percent are we blocked to hope? 0%. Okay. Now what do we do? Let's drop in. Let's find ourselves right back here in this very present moment. Not worrying about the past, not thinking about the future. Being in presence for as long as feels right to you. If you want to take a few minutes after this video is over to meditate, to really evaluate the areas in your life you have been operating inside of self-punishment. If you want to take a few minutes to have a really quiet, beautiful conversation with yourself around forgiveness, around self-love, around self-acceptance, now is a good time to do that. All right, everybody. Thanks again for watching, for being here. I hope that this was helpful to somebody in some way. Again, if you want to reach me, have a private session, just a conversation, I'm happy to just chat. I love to chat all things spirituality. I especially like to connect with people who have been, through religious transformation of some kind or spiritual transformation of some kind. That is my story as well. And I would love to connect with anybody who would like to talk about that, talk about their experience and their journey. Whew, all right, everybody. Thanks again for watching another episode of Clearing with Kate, and we will see you next time.